the first miracle of the day. If I wake up and I'm able to, move out the bed, it's a miracle in itself. So for those that either attended or watched via the recorded session that I put on YouTube, any questions? Did it come out clear for you? Where is it things where were you able to understand the material? How was that? All right. So this week we're going to cover access control. The other thing that we're going to do when we meet in class, we are going to go through some practical items, right? We're going to do some practical items, show you exactly how access control looks in a Linux file system, and then how to do some, I guess, navigation in Linux, some commands, and how to script these items up. So we will do hands-on stuff. So make sure you bring your laptops, make sure they're charged, or at the least bring your cable to keep them charged. And we will do a number of tasks this Thursday. All right, so let's do that. All right, so access control, this is one of the domains of the certified information security professional, right? Again, these slides are all open access, and I'm talking to various points in the slides, so not everything may be covered. I'm going to cover the important stuff that is going to relate that you guys should need. But access control is an important domain. This is important because when you deal with the subject trying to interact with the object, there has to be some type of system or access control methodology in place, just so one cannot misuse the other. All right. So access is the flow of information between a subject and an object, right? A subject can be a person, process, device, or a program. And the object, file, database, program, or process as well, and it can even include devices, right? Again, you have subjects accessing an object, right? And so access controls, they're a collection of mechanisms that work together to protect the information assets of the enterprise from authorized access. So what that means is I just can't log into a system and access any file that I need, right? There needs to be something in place so I can access that particular file, right? Does Maurice have the security client, the security clearance, right? Do I have the necessary security clearance? Am I doing the particular role that allows me to access this particular file, right? So these are things that need to be in place, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. So access controls, they enable management to specify which user can access the system, what resources they can access, what operation they can perform. And when we meet up this Thursday and we talk about, how to do read-write access, that's an example of providing what operations can occur, right? A file has read, write, execute. Read equals 4, write equals 2, execute equals 1. And so when you do change modify chmod, that command in the do that command in the Linux command line or terminal, it will let you know you do ls space -l. I think that's the command. I'm gonna run it myself real quick, and I will be able to tell you exactly what it is. ls space ls. Yeah, so it's ls space -ls, and it will tell you the read-write permission of that particular file. And so this will specify what operations can be done by users, groups, and others. All right. And then it provides individual accountability. So there's a number of logs within the system, and we'll go through those logs as well that will show exactly what's been accessed, who's trying to access what. And then we'll install a tripwire later on in the class, and you can see a more robust level of accountability. All right, least privilege. This is the policy that limits the user and the processes to access only those resources necessary to perform assigned functions, right? If an individual needs to, we'll say the janitor, right? What access controls do you think a janitor needs? Do you think they need to access the repository of all the code, the software code for a company? Yes or no? If feel free to take your mic up and respond back.
No, you don't. It's yeah.
Yeah, you're correct. They don't. And it's like someone in finance, they would need access probably to repositories or folders that contain, items they need to, do annual reports and stuff like that. But they don't need to know engineering or technical specification, technical drawings and stuff like that. They don't need that. That's not part of their duty. So they need the least privileges to do their job. Then you have separation of duties. And what this is a process designed to separate steps that must be performed by different people, right? So it forces collusion, forces people to work together, defines elements of a process or work function, and it divides elements among different functions. You don't want one person responsible for everything. So imagine, here I am, I'm writing the code, right? I've written all this code, and then I need someone to overlook or approve it. Should I be the same individual to approve what I just wrote? What are your
No,
thoughts? Now, so
because you might miss something that you yourself wrote.
yes, and I'll be honest, after like doing this for like months and realizing there is no consequence, I might get lazy. I might have a bad week and like, you know what? I don't really care. And I just approved something that should not have ever been approved at all. And now that code is going into production. That really crappy code is going to production. That is why it's important to have separation of duties. All right, so here it talks about, it says that the environment for access control includes the following: the information system, the facilities. So these are all the physical security countermeasures, right? Do we have a physical security countermeasure at the university?
Doors and locks.
Yep, and everyone has a badge, right? There's buildings you can't get in unless you badge. So you badge, boom, you can get in the door.
Or
So
there
you
are
have
people
that.
who control the doors, like for example, the people at like the front desk, they usually have to, or like secretaries buzzing people in to allow them access.
That's correct. And when you go to the tower, when you go to the Galvin Tower, you're supposed to go up there and hey, when you put your badge there, your picture comes up, so they know that it's you when you badge. So even if someone takes your badge and uses it, they will be able to say, "Oh, okay, this is not the person." Like Maurice is not some Caucasian woman. Like they know that they can see. All right, there's a Black American and there's a Caucasian woman that just used the badge for Maurice. Like they're not the same people.
Yep.
All right, then you have support systems. This is like HVAC, utility, water. These are all the things that run critical infrastructure. Towards the end of the class, we'll talk about critical infrastructure, but you have support systems that run critical infrastructure. And then you have personnel, right? So users, operators, customers, business partners, these are all things that are part of the information protection environment. There's different phases. So for everyone here, when you think about phases and life cycle, remember like a lot of these life cycles, they're the same. The key is to bring security into these life cycles, and then you further flesh those out. So here you'll see that initiation phase, it's tied to the IEEE 1220 concept stage. Survey, understand the policies, standards, and guidelines. Why is that important? Every environment is going to require different things. If you're working in healthcare, you have HIPAA, right? If you're working in the Department of Defense, you'll have risk management framework. They will all be different policies, standards, and guidelines that you need to abide by, right? Data is classified different, whether it's federal government, state government, or bank or healthcare. California has the child protection privacy act or something like that. It deals with protecting child data and things of that nature. Other states have different variants. So you have to understand the environment you're in. Then you need to identify information assets, whether these are tangible and intangible. So what are all the assets? This is important. Machines, databases, servers, items that can be accessed to your cloud environment. What are all your assets? The interesting part is a number of organizations forget to capture all of their assets. You say, all right, let me see your hardware software listing. They may not even have that. prime example, when I did work at Ethiopia, I was at the country's largest microfinance institution. So I was there helping with their database architecture, and I said, "All right, let's start this off. Let me see your hardware software listing. Did they have it?" They're like, Mo, we have some pictures of the hardware that you have, but the other sites we really can't. There's no accountability." So I'm like, "Okay, well, you're telling me that you have this large architecture that's spread out over the country for 100 million people approximately, and all these different sites, but you don't know what's running at each site." And that was at the headquarters site. So that creates a big issue. So you can't have access controls if you can't, or you can have access control, but you need to be able to deploy them through the entire system. And you need to know the configuration of these particular assets as well. So if you're going to write something to harden the system, it's like, okay, well, what is the actual software build on this other site? All that's important. So that's why you need to be able to identify all the information assets. Define information security categorization and protection level. Here, you're just saying what the information is valued at or classified. The federal government has unclassified, secret, and top secret. Now, there's caveats that occur within that particular classification, but we'll talk about it another time. But and if you're thinking commercial, low, medium, high, right? That is generally the classification. So now you have to think about what is the classification of the information. Because what's interesting, the classification will determine how you actually handle the data. And this can be very important. Federal government stance, right? Your actual hardware assets, they're unclassified, right? Let's just say they're unclassified to lowest level, low level. You take something that's top secret, which is the highest level, and you take that information and you put it on the unclassified system. Now that system has to be treated at the highest level information it contains. Now you just took an unclassified system and made it top secret. And anything touching that system becomes top secret as well. In the commercial realm, you have similar things. So that's why it's important to categorize information. The handling of the information is important because it will also determine how much money you have to spend to protect that information. Right? If something's unclassified or is low level, you shouldn't be spending lots of money to protect it. You don't need lots of money to protect it. You can get away with probably doing the bare minimum. But if it's something at your highest classification, you need to do whatever you can, because what happens is they say if it's top secret or it's high, it can cause grave damage. All right, lower severe damage, right? So it's important that you understand what information is classified as. Extremely important. All right, so you need to define the rules of behavior and the security concept of operation. That's what concepts mean, concept of operations, right? So that's phase one. Phase two, which is tied to the IEEE 1220 development stage, is the acquisition and development stage, right? So conduct a business impact analysis as a risk assessment. When we do our projects towards the end of the semester, you will do a risk assessment. You will see what risks are there to the project. Before you do anything, you need to understand the risk. You're going to buy a house. What is the risk of owning a home? What is the risk of buying this particular home? If you're going to buy a house in Southern Florida, what is the risk if you buy a house in Southern Florida? What could you expect?
Mass floodings in your basement, hurricanes tearing up your roofs.
Wow, Kevin, that was really quick. I don't expect you to be moving to Florida anytime soon. But yes, that is something to think about. You think about New Orleans, right? When they had the levees break for the second time. What is the risk there? Flooding, obviously. These are things to think about. Then you need to think about the security requirements. Now, the security requirements will occur based on the policies and standards and that you need to be aligned with or compliant with. So from there, you say, all right, I know what I need to be compliant with. I know the classification of the information. Now I can say, all right, I'm going to take the security requirements and move. Nicholas, I'm laughing at you, Gators. But that is serious. But now I can state what requirements that I need to be compliant with. From there, you can have a stakeholder meeting with your client engineers and say, all right, these are the requirements that we think should drive our architecture. And do you agree with these requirements? And then we'll build these requirements for our system. Then you need to do a cost benefit analysis, right? A lot of things you can just buy off the shelf. We'll call that COTS, commercial off the shelf. Like if you go to Micro Center, you're like, all right, you need a couple laptops. You just go to Micro Center, you purchase those laptops, and boom, you got them. That's COTS. Now, GOTS is government off the shelf. That's a GSA catalog. You need to be federal contractor, do work with the government, or be the actual federal government or state government. You purchase GOTS. Then you have something called modified COTS and GOTS, where you purchase an item. Say I purchased them from Micro Center, and I'm like, all right, I got these laptops, but I need to make some changes to it. I need to make them rugged so they can meet some requirements for ruggedization, maybe, I don't know, sand or water requirements. And I need to beef up how rugged it is, right? Then you can say, all right, well, I need a contractor. I have this particular item that needs to be built. Say there's an application that needs to be developed. I can do internally, and there's 2 departments that could do it. Now you have a make versus make analysis. Now this make versus make analysis is 2 analyses that are done within the organization to see which one is more affordable, feasible, which can provide the security needed, and you can make a decision off that. Or you can say, all right, is it cheaper to buy it or make it? It's cost versus buy analysis. Or yeah, cost versus buy, cost versus make analysis, or buy versus make analysis. Then you see what the difference is between doing it in-house or going to acquire this outside. So this cost benefit analysis is important because this can save you money in the long run, right? You can save money. You can take whatever money saved, throw that in something they call management reserve, which would be 10% of your contract, throw in a management reserve, and save that later. And because you never know what risk may be realized later. And we'll talk about that later, because risk, once they hit like 85%, they're no longer a risk to reality. Now you need to go into your management reserve, take that money out, and use that to offset that particular risk, because now that risk is going to occur. All right, so here it says security planning based off the risk in the CBA. Then you have you need to develop controls, and we'll talk about that. I think it's rather easy once you understand what you need to be compliant to. For this course, we are going to look at the NIST 800-53 Rev 4 controls. They have controls. We're going to look at those controls and how you can further flesh those out, write those controls, test them, and build them in your system. So we'll be looking at that. Develop a security and test evaluation plan for verification and validation. So you get these controls, you implement them into your system, right? Then you have a plan to test and verify these. You will test them internally, but there will be an auditor, an independent auditor that comes and verifies that you actually met the controls for your customer, and that will occur. But you will test them internally. You won't just say, I got the controls, they're built in. You won't go in blind, but you'll test them yourself to say, all right, I have the controls built in. Because if some of the controls, they fail, even if they fail partially, you will need to create a plan of actions and milestones, a POEM, and you will state that I have a plan to address this particular issue, right? So I'll address the issue in 2-3 months, and this issue will be taken care of. Or to say, hey, this is a false positive, or this particular control is not applicable, so I don't need to meet this control. All that will occur there. You have the implementation phase. In this phase, you will implement everything according to the baseline system design, and update the system security plan. So here you're implementing everything that you said that you're going to do. So again, before you talk about what the controls are, and here you're actually implementing them. Here it says perform a security certification and accreditation of target system. This is their CNA. So what this means is that your system, by this time, that third party I was mentioning, will happen in this phase. They'll come through, they'll say, hey, your system is good to go. You either pass or fail, or they'll give you an approval to operate, which means you can operate freely, or an approval to operate, meaning there's some items that need to be fixed. So for 6 months, you have interim approval, and in 6 months, you should fix everything that you weren't able to address. And so 4 and 5 are interesting because you have an operations phase. So you have an operations maintenance phase, and then you have a disposition phase, or you're pretty much throwing it away. So in the operation phase, here you have configuration management, and you need to perform change control. So while you're operating the system, you need to provide updates, right? So how are you making sure that these updates are performed accordingly? All these changes that are being added to the system are being monitored. There's a process to approve changes, right? There's a change control board. There's been someone to look at, what's occurring, and then they could say, all right, well, it's good. This is going to go into, they call them gold builds sometimes. So like you have 1.0, that's going to be your first build. 2.0, maybe that's your golden build. Then you have like 2.1, 2.3, 2.4. And so everything is managing these builds. If you go to any particular, we'll just say you go to Ubuntu, right? You go to Ubuntu, the developer page, you can see how their builds go, right? They have LTS, which is your long-term support. And then they have all these builds in between long-term support builds that are adding in new functionality, or maybe there's a security issue that was found, but more times is more functionality. The fifth phase is, you're pretty much getting rid of the system. So you need to preserve the information. So how do you preserve it? This will deal with the classification information. If something is generally at the highest level, you need to maintain records for 3 years. If it's at your basic, we'll say medium, then it's going to be stored for a year, right? So how long do you preserve information deals off the data classification. Again, that's why it's important up front to understand what is the classification of the data. So you can imagine now you have to preserve information. How big is the system? How much information do you need to preserve? And when you preserve this information, you need to have someone to manage this, right? If you preserve something, do you just want to have it in the cloud? Should we just preserve the information on the cloud? What are your thoughts?
Potentially, I wouldn't put anything like super important, like vital, because if you put it in the cloud, there is the possibility for hacking.
Okay. And then there's also a possibility for the information being deleted or being corrupted. So you have that. Yes, and Nicholas, you're right. The provider might make a mistake. When we talk about cryptography, we'll talk about hash, and we'll talk about the importance of hash. And you're putting stuff out there, you need to hash it, make sure it's not changed, and there's other particular things you need to do to make sure that the integrity of the data is there. But depending upon the classification of information, if it's federal government, you more than likely won't be able to put it on the cloud, maybe a secure cloud. But again, a lot of those records are kept offline. So you need to think about how it gets managed, how it gets stored, backups, what happens if that site goes down, where is it backed up, who's maintaining it, chain of custody. There's lots of things to think about. So just because you get a system out the door, people are using it, now you can think about, okay, now they're using it. How do I maintain the system? The thing that they don't mention this phase is when you need to do fixes, right? So you need to do fixes, you need to do updates. Where do you do this, right? So this is like the supply chain logistics. So how do you get these updates out? Where in the particular line? So you generally say, all right, well, I'm going to go to this particular depot. There's some depot, and I'm going to do everything here. Or you're going to have some particular technician go out there and do the updates. So a lot of that stuff needs to be thought of during this phase. And depending upon the life of the system, we'll say it's 3 years, right? You may have to go for another full-fledged certification accreditation again. So 3 years came up, you need to go through the entire process again. Then you have continuous monitoring. So just because you fill the system, remember, due care, due diligence, just because you fill the system doesn't mean your job's done, right? I always say it's like raising kids, right? The kid came out great. Okay, kid's good. Okay, now, now you need to do it not annually, but you need to do this all the time. You need to check and say, all right, well, how are they doing? Is there something wrong? Are they sick? You need to continuously check. Same thing, treat the system like it's your kid, because it pretty much is for all intended purposes. You need to make sure that, okay, there's a new zero-day vulnerability. Does it affect the system? I need to do a scan. Do monthly scans. If there's patches, apply these patches. There's lots of stuff that needs to be done in this operation and maintenance phase. Now, you're done. You finish your system. You're ready to get rid of it. They're going to perhaps put out an upgrade. Now you got to think about, I'm ready to get rid of this, right? So when I mentioned preserve information, now you need to sanitize media, right? I need to sanitize media. So now there's a number of tools. There's Darren's Newton Boot and Nuke or something like that, but it is like a 3-right path. So it's approved for doing degaussing of actual hardware and media. So it's important. Use something like that. Now, a lot of your disposed hardware, where do you think it ends up? Where do you think that media ends up when you get rid of this media and its hardware? When you throw away systems? Okay, Muhammad says recycle. All right, give me a little bit more.
I mean, like from what I understand of how like hardware is disposed of, like like when it comes to computers, they usually like they have to like completely like magnetize every hard drive, delete every trace of data on any of it.
All right, Michael, I like your wishful thinking. That's what they're supposed to do. I love your wishful thinking. Daniela says probably another country to be stripped for parts. Daniela is correct. Now, one of these countries is Ghana. There is I'll provide this link. It deals with a group called the Sakwa Boys, and what they do is they take this particular hardware and they make use of it and they strip the information from it. All the data is here. So all these lovely Instagram photos and all this other stuff that you may have on your mobile devices that you got rid of, someone else can take use of that and use it to their own benefit. And Christian says eBay. There's a lot of that stuff on eBay. People will do. They will do a format and think everything's gone, which is not gone. Again, you have to use a approved tool to do degaussing of media. Most people don't do that. Most people will just do a format, call it a day, and move forward. So the software is called Derek's Boot and Nuke. I was incorrect. Derek's Boot and Nuke. dban.org. I'm going to share the link. You can take a look at it. And so a lot of these particular items, they don't do proper erasure. This particular software, they do secure solid state erasure. They have erasure standards. They meet 22, over 22. They're compliant with the Department of Defense. They have certifications from Common Criteria. Certification, yeah, is it certified? I think it's Certified Electronic Security Group. Basically, the UK's equivalent to the NXA, NATO. It's pretty good. So I would say like you need something like this. All right, so information classification, this is what I mentioned earlier: commercial, public, private, sensitive, confidential. Just think low, medium, high, right? Military. So here they show 5 really unclassified or confidential. You can put the top 3 in the same category, right? So unclassified, confidential is all the same. Then you have secret, top secret. There's other classifications like Yankee White, or not classification, I would say caveats. Yankee White, Yankee Gray, special access programs, sensitive compartmentalized information, single scope background. You have all these others, but those are just caveats. Unclass, secret, top secret. Commercial, low, medium, high. So what this does, it explains the level of safeguard and how the information should be handled, right? So if I have something, let's say it's federal government and it's top secret, do you think I could just walk out of the building with the folder that says top secret? What are your thoughts?
I guess no.
Honest, yes, you're correct. Just no, not at all. There are special safes for classified information. There's always a facility security officer that manages the facility for all the classified items. If you're accessing a machine that's processing at least secret information, There is a special room. It has a lock. You have to go to the facility. You have to give them your name. They check your clearance. You get approval to make sure you have access to it for the program. Every minute you're in there is logged. Your steps are tracked. It is there's a lot of, I guess you could say, accountability that occurs. Nicholas says if you hide it well enough. So Nicholas, you just can't go to the room. You just can't grab the information. There is a custodian. There's a custodian that is managing the information. They're managing the information. When you badge to the door to get to the locked room or whatever, that room may also have a I'm trying to think of it. It's like it's like the tumblers you have on safes. The room may have something like that as well to get to the room, include a badge. Depending upon the classification, the room will be built specifically for the class of information, that information. There may be no crawl space and stuff like that. So Nicholas, it's extremely difficult. And plus, if you end up doing something like that, and let's just say it goes wrong, you could end up in prison for many years, prison and fine. Because what happens when they give you I guess you could say they give you the what? They give you the rights for that information, then you are saying that you can be trusted.
You're muted, by the way.
Sorry. So this is the process for information classification, right? So determine data classification, the proper objects, establish organization support, develop a data classification policy, standard and process flow and procedures, develop tools to support processes. Then you want to identify the application owners, identify data owners and date owner delegates, distribute standard templates, classified information applications, develop auditing procedures, load information into central repository, train users, and periodically review and update data classifications. Now, if you're at a large organization, a lot of this stuff will already be done. If you're working with any government organization, that comes from like an executive order, which is the president or a director of one of these big branches, and they will set these standards of what data should be classified. And then it will, by the time you say it, it will be already like, this is top secret, this is secret. And there's something called a security classification guide. And the security classification guide will tell you how information is classified, to include if you're writing in a general doc, right? You're writing an email or any document, which words can get the document classified. So it is a lot. It is extremely detailed. So it is extremely detailed. So even though they have a lot of stuff here, just know that a lot of the stuff may be already done for you. And you just have to think about how do you follow or develop systems that are in those particular regulations. All right. So here is showing levels. So here is saying top secret information. Again, it's showing executive order. It's executive order. Comes from the president's office or somebody up high. Top secret shall be applied to information, the unauthorized disclosure of which reasonably could expect to cause exceptionally grave damage to the national security that the original classification authority is able to identify or describe. Secret, serious damage, right? So grave, serious, and then confidential just is damage, right? No one's going to die, but, or yeah, say it like that. And secret, you can cause lives and stuff like that. And so someone says, how does top secret data that is shared to emails are protected? So when you're dealing with secret and top secret, there are special network drops that you have. Secret uses something called SIPRNet, which is secure internet. So years ago, I think just one of those drops cost about $30,000, right? So there's an entire system. If it's top secret, the intelligence community has something called JWICs. And so there's classified networks for sharing that data. So the data will never be shared through, Gmail Suite or something like that. It's an entirely different platform that it's expensive, lots of security around it. And of course, people have to get clearances and get cleared as well. When you're dealing with this information classification, there are lots of checks you need to go through. I believe secret is 5 years or 10 years for top secret, but there's lots of checks, checking family members, any relationships with foreign nationals. There are a lot of checks that must occur for someone to access this information. You're not going to come up the street and say, all right, I want to access information. Even having things, short sales, you have financial problems, you have a bad credit score, speeding tickets, all this stuff can count negatively against you for getting a security clearance. So it's extremely difficult for U.S. citizens, and you can only be a U.S. citizen. So say you fall in love with someone outside the country, that can affect your ability to obtain a clearance. You want to travel outside to China, you're like, I want to see the Great Wall. You got a clearance, you need approval to do stuff like that. So it's extremely serious when you deal with this world. I have a YouTube video of an individual who, for those that do want to work as a government contractor or federal government, she helps individuals write resumes for jobs that deal with the stuff. And then, she's always available to talk to you about things that you consider when working in this particular world. But if you're one of these people that want to travel out the country every month and go to some unknown destination, this is not for you. You should stick to the commercial side of things. All right. Here again is just showing the executive order, just breaking it out a little further. So it shows the classification authority, the president, vice president, agency heads, and designated by the president of the Federal Register, and then subordinate U.S. government officials. Yes, you got your hand raised. Go ahead, Kat.
Yeah, I heard that a lot of private sector jobs also want security clearance. Is that true?
So Kat, so the private sector doesn't have the same type of. So if they're doing work with the federal government, like Boeing, Collins, Raytheon, that's different. They're basically building these systems that the government is buying and stuff. But if it's like McDonald's, they do tech stuff. The McDonald's headquarters, I think it's here in Chicago. They're not going to ask for it. What they'll do is they'll run a background check, make sure you don't have a felony, something like that. But they're not doing anything detailed. They're not going to go and say, all right, I want to go to Kat's parents and ask Kat's parents, like, what type of person is this? Like, when you get a clearance, they will go to your neighbors and they'll go back to your teachers and all this stuff. I've had a clearance. The first time I had a clearance, I think I was 17. I joined the U.S. Army Reserves out of Fort Hood, Texas. It was long. They went all the way back many years. And I'm like, I'm 17. Like, that should be nothing serious. And I maintained a clearance for most of my time, even a little bit after when I got in academia. But it's a process. It is really a process. You get fingerprinted and stuff like that. And it's expensive. So it's an investment for a company. So commercial companies can't afford that, right? They just can't afford that. It doesn't make any sense. The data, they don't expect the data to cost lives. Imagine you're working on a new bomber, right? And you're not trustworthy and you leak all the intellectual property. Now not just as a company screwed, the U.S. government is screwed, the military is screwed. So now you can be affecting basically the military strength or power in a particular region, because now that bomber can no longer be in that region because they know the details, and that other country, the other nation state, can build the same thing using IP, using the stolen IP. So the missions are vastly different. Vastly different. Now, if you're dealing with a recruiter, they ask you for stuff, especially you're in the stage of just, applying for a particular gig, and you shouldn't provide that because usually they're probably scam artists and stuff. We'll talk about that later. All right. So here, these are the classified categories. military plans, weapon systems or operations, foreign government information, intelligence activities, sources or methods or cryptology, foreign relations or foreign activities of the United States, including confidential sources. When you guys travel with the U.S. Embassy, think about that. I'll send out a link. It's you look at the Wiki cable leaks. That is all from the U.S. Embassy. You'll see that a lot of that stuff was classified that was leaked. Scientific, technological, or economic matters relating to national security, IP of mission system, military weapon systems or military systems, the big thing. All right. United States government programs for safeguarding nuclear materials or facilities. We have the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, Department of Energy. That information leaked out is catastrophic. The development, production, or use of weapons of mass destruction. So you can see what all these particular categories will dictate information classification, right? The Department of Defense is for what, people? What is the Department of Defense or a country's military for? What is the military for?
Deterrence.
You said for what?
Deterrence.
Oh wow, Kat, you're going to be a politician when you in a couple of years.
I don't think so.
It's to project military power and strength in the region, right? You can say it's for protecting the homeland. It's for projecting power, strength, and stuff like that. So when you think about that, defense and offense. So Muhammad is both defense and offense. We see some countries that are on the offense quite a bit, but it's projecting military strength, to say it in a better sense. So if you're trying to project military strength, you can't have any of that information leaked, because now it's going to harm whatever you try to project there. You have some new weapon that's going to allow you to do something. Well, the details of that weapon was just, provided to another country, the country that you wanted to project power in. They have the same weapon. They can build the same weapon in so many months. They usually have something called tamper. Well, there's active tamper, passive tamper. Passive, for those who got the PS5, right? You got seals on it. You would open it up and make some changes. Maybe you wanted to save some money and you bought a cheaper hard drive. You have the lower gig hard drive. You're like, no, I'm going to put my own hard drive in there. Once you break those seals, it says you can't return. But generally, that's passive tamper, right? So you use your friend's hair dryer. You got the seals off. You replace the hard drive. You close it back up. No one knows, right? But active anti-tampers, you opened it up, and now the system is rendered useless, right? Because you're worried about reverse engineering and stuff like that. All right, so this is just more guidelines. This is the DoD 5200.1.01 Information Security Program. It has 4 different volumes. Overview, classification, declassification. Everything that's classified gets declassified. There's the Freedom of Information Act. You can actually request items that were classified from years ago, and you can actually review that. Now, there will be things that are blacked out to protect, maybe the people that are listed in there, but you can actually request items with the Freedom of Information Act. Police reports, you can request those. You can request police reports on anybody. You can say, all right, I want a police report on this address. Freedom of Information Act, you can get it. Now, with the Department of Defense, you have to wait till things are declassified. Once they're declassified, then you can see them. But it takes years for it to be classified. You're not going to say, all right, well, I want to see classified documents based on the war in Iraq. Let's give it another 10 years, and maybe you can see those documents. So marking, how do you mark the information? How do you protect it? And then then controlled unclassified information. Now, there's different controls. Yeah, the administrative controls, policies, standards, processes, guidelines. You have operational or physical controls. And then operation controls or physical. Think about gun gates and guards. Whenever you think about physical security, think gun gates and guards. So think about that in terms of physical security. Guns, gates, guards. So you have that. And then you have technical controls. CIA, so CIA or AIC, availability, integrity, confidentiality. Those are the three pillars, right? Project management is like scope, time, budget, or cost. Cybersecurity, the AIC or CIA, try that is the cornerstone of everything. So here it shows your EA, your enterprise architect, security engineer, incident response, help desk. Different types of security controls, they all do sort of, I guess, what you're saying. Directive controls, these controls advise employees of the expected behavior for protecting an organization's information asset. Preventive controls, physical, administrative, and technical measures intended to prevent unauthorized access to the organization's information asset. Detective controls, practices, processes, and tools that identify and possibly react to unauthorized access to the information asset. Corrective controls, physical, administrative, and technical countermeasures designed to react to security incidents in order to reduce or eliminate the opportunity for the unwanted event to recur. Now, recovery, these are controls to have a system recover. Here, just showing example implementation access controls. So you can see directive, these are administrative, directive, policy guidelines. Physical shows procedure. When you go here in terms of detective, CCTV, monitor access, motion detectors. Detective here under management, review access logs, job rotation, investigation, security awareness training, right? Now you think about recovery. We'll talk about this a lot more in detail, but you have business continuity planning, disaster recovery planning. A lot of times this is its own particular needed section. There are certs in this section as well, in this particular domain. And then physical reconstruction offline facility. So different types of facilities, sites. You have warm sites, cold sites, hot sites. You have mirror sites. Each site comes with its own costs and pros and cons. And there are a lot of organizations now, in order to save money, they will actually work with someone in a they'll work with someone to offset these costs. All right, so there's a number of different threats related to access control. So you have, we'll look at computing threats, denial of service, unauthorized software. This one is interesting because you can do a number of things to check source code and stuff like that if you have the source code available. We'll run a number of tools to do a static code analysis so you can actually check the code. We'll look at the hash that comes with the software, but you have malicious code, you have mobile code, you have software defects, right? There's a group called OWASP, the Open Web Application Security Project, and they list like the top 10 vulnerabilities and the top 10, CW, top common weakness enumeration or exploits. They have been the same for 2 decades, the same items, right? So when we do penetration testing, and we run through the sandbox environment, you'll see that a lot of the stuff is the same. Like, you'll be surprised how many organizations do not fix these issues at all. And so it becomes a big issue when you realize that a lot of companies let these same issues linger on, and nothing's done about it. Then you have physical threats. So unauthorized physical access. Dumpster diving, people will still go through dumpsters and get information. You have shoulder surfing. This is just someone looking over your shoulder. And then you have eavesdropping. These three are pretty basic, right? And they're not going to cost much for someone to do, but they're pretty basic. But you would be surprised how effective they are. How many people here talk in the public about things that may deal with, like, I don't know, at home, bank account? Do we talk in public about this type of stuff? All right. Well, Muhammad says absolutely not. Kat says no. Well, you'd be surprised. They'll be like, yeah, they'll be talking. Especially, imagine you're in your office. You're in your office, your work office, and you're having a conversation, right? You're thinking, well, maybe no one's listening. Someone could be listening. So here you are having a conversation, thinking that it's, it's okay, and someone is listening to every word you say. All right, shoulder surfing. A lot of times, organizations are not going to give everyone an office. They will put you in what I call cubeland. It's not forever, just for a couple of years. You'll be in cubeland. So you'll be working with lots of people in cubeland. When you're working in an environment like that, it's easy for someone to look over your shoulder and see what you're doing. And after a while, you may forget that, that particular threat is an issue. There's something you can get in terms of covering your screen, so it makes it more difficult for someone to just simply look over your shoulder. But these are things to truly think about. Now, you have personnel and social engineering threats. So you have targeted data mining, spying, and impersonation. So social engineering threats. I want to hear some examples of social engineering threats. Let's hear some examples of social engineering threats.
When someone keeps asking you questions about your life or personal hobbies and stuff like that.
Okay, so why is it an issue if someone asks you about your personal hobby or your life?
Because they could try to use that information to maybe call let's say a mobile provider to change the phone number to a new SIM card, or to use that information to try to see if it could use a combination to type into a password, that kind of stuff.
Okay. Now, when you do your password, your multi-factor authentication, right? And they come up with questions. A lot of times they'll say, what street were you raised on? So if I know something about you, I'm like, oh, I know what street he was raised on. What is your mother's maiden name? Oh, he told me. Like, he told me that he went to this family reunion and it was the Johnsons, but now they're the Browns. Okay. So now they're able to use some of these things that you have said to maneuver and get to where they want to be at, right? In terms of getting access. Imagine when you call a lot of these help desks and it's a woman pretending to be, oh, I'm Maurice's spouse, right? She has a crying baby and she's just playing a noise of a baby crying. I have an issue. My husband's sick. I need to change something in the account. I have his information available. You'll be surprised that actually works. They have just a decent amount of information and it works. Now, someone says using
I actually
LinkedIn,
saw something like that before on a video. It was for one of my previous classes.
Did you?
Yeah, there was it was a video like a while like a while ago during my first semester, but the class
That
the
was
teacher
on
showed.
DEF CON.
Yeah, that was like the lady basically the guy who was running like the actual like video, she was able to get into his into one of his accounts.
Yes. So, I mean, it's scary when you think about how easy this can be done. And with a lot of the stuff in this country, a lot of the stuff is freely available. Like, you can just go to a number of sites and pull the information. So it's frightening. Someone says using LinkedIn or other social networking sites to gather information and doing phishing attacks with a proper plan. So on LinkedIn, you state where you went to school at. Some people, like, I'll give a prime example. My daughter today, right? She's 11. It was interesting because now she has a LinkedIn account. I guess they did it for her STEM class, but she has a LinkedIn account. When you at certain ages, you can figure out, okay, this person online, their child's online. These are people that they're close to because you can see, they're sharing or they look up to them. You can start figuring out that social network. Now, say that we're also on Facebook, right? Which we're not, but they could go to Facebook and say, all right, well, let me validate or verify that these may be the same people. And you can say, oh, I'm gonna look at these pictures, and based upon how many times they're posting, they're probably living in this area. If it's a site that doesn't strip the metadata, they can actually run the metadata and figure out, oh, this is where they actually lived, or at least every so often they're at this gym because Marius is posting gym pics. So it's frightening. It's frightening when you think about just how much can be done. The other crazy thing is when you think about a lot of these phishing attacks, especially in the past, one of the ways you could tell that the attacks were from outside the country or they were just bogus attacks because of the grammar. But there's a lot of tools now that can be used to craft the perfect email, right? You can use ChatGPT to help you make amazing phishing attacks, right? You can write it up. You can say, target this person, write an email based off this person's likes off their page, put the information in ChatGPT, let it spit something out, and then use that, massage it a bit, and use that to create your attack. So it changes things quite a bit. All right, so I'm not going to go through all this. What I'm going to do is talk about these action controls. In class, what I'm going to do is, or Sunday lab, I'm going to demonstrate how you can create phishing attacks. When I was in Kosovo for this recent Fulbright Award back in April, one of the students there at the university said that he makes money doing phishing and spam attacks. He makes money in doing these attacks. Right? So this particular country or nation, it's fairly inexpensive, or you could say it's a lower tiered European country in terms of buying power, even though they use the euro, but it's not much. But people, they want jobs. The unemployment rate is extremely high, so people are looking at alternative means of making money. So that's where you have a number of these countries. Romania is one where they will do cyber attacks for income. All right. So here, going back to the control families and control types and examples, administrative, they're directive controls. Physical and technical controls, they listed out here fairly short. Preventative controls that avoid incident. Detective controls that identify incident. Corrective controls that fix the incident, and recovery controls that restores to the baseline from the incident. Subject requests a service, and the object provides the requested service. Subject object. So here it talks about the Orange Book. The Orange Book is part of the Rainbow series. In the Rainbow series were a bunch of books that gave security guidance, right, for what to do. The Rainbow series is extremely large. Like there's tan book, the yellow book, the green book, the light green book, the light blue book, the pink book. It was the black book, the white book. It was a lot. So you look at the Rainbow series, this is where a lot of the cybersecurity concepts come from. Like the Rainbow series is one of the oldest particular guidance from the government that was given out. Now the objects will be labeled according to their access sensitivity. There's a number of things for identity, different types: user ID, account number, username. Needs to be unique, standard naming convention, non-descriptive of job function, secure and documented issuance process. Different types of authentication. There's three: something you have, something you know, and something you are. Right? So something you know, password, passphrase, PIN. Now the issue with something that you know, if it's your birthday that you're using, someone that knows you, or they're able to go on Facebook, or even I think LinkedIn even says birthdays, your birthday's visible. Social security number, for those that didn't know, you can, like, at least in the state of Virginia, a social security number deals with like where you were born in the state, the year you were born. You can figure out what someone's social security number is to maybe not the exact number, but at least a group of numbers, and you can figure that out. Did anybody know that about social security numbers?
I mean, I knew social security numbers weren't that secure. They weren't designed to be.
Yes, they were never designed to be used the way they were intended. Never at all. So, so I'm looking at it. So the first 3 digits, they were the geographic region. The middle 2 were the group number, and the last 4 were the serial number. So yeah, it gave quite a bit. All right. And then something that you have. So token, smart card, keys. This can be taken from you. If it's a token, someone can take your token. If it's a smart card, like a common access card, it can be taken. And then something that the subject is, biometrics, think about fingerprints, voice, facial, or retina patterns, right? If you only use biometrics for your phone, right, use your fingerprint, you fall asleep and you have someone sleeping next to you, what can they do? Is biometric secure for a mobile device when you fall asleep with someone around you? Kevin says no. It's not, right? Whether it's your fingerprint or your face, it's not secure. There's a number of devices that will actually open your phone on low light now. So when you take your, you do your facial recognition and whatnot, and it's captured, you can do it in different light settings. So it can open depending upon the actual, I guess the light exposure, which is bad for you. So strong authentication is 2 of the 3, right? So, okay, you unlock the phone with my fingerprint. You still need to provide something else to get into my phone further. Yeah, so Mohammed, you're correct. So a number of companies will use screen protectors that you can only see from a certain type of angle. However, the problem is, like with some of these screen protectors, they may affect your ability to use biometrics, right? So they may have the hole cut out for the camera, but the biometrics will be maybe a little bit more difficult because now you have to ensure that the film that's used is able to read the print correctly. So if you have a mobile device and you have a screen protector, you need to go ahead and use the biometric again to make sure that it's captured. All right, so here is showing. So Kevin, you said you read that they're built into computers. Are you talking about the screen protectors? I think maybe high-end computers, but like for myself, I'm a big fan of Dell. And at least with their XPSs, they're not built in. And these are their development machines. They're not built in at all. Now, on one of my XPSs, I actually had to purchase my own. And then I have a Samsung Book. It's not built in either. I had to go purchase one myself. But now the issue is having my fingerprint be able to log in using my fingerprint. So there's give and take. Like any type of security control that you add to a system, you have to think about, okay, I'm going to add this in. What type of functionality will I have to give up? Because a lot of times you end up, unfortunately, giving something up. So you have to think like that. Okay, well, I'm going to add this in. What will I give up? For those that want to keep everything like encrypted, and we'll do cryptography as well. Speed. You're going to give up speed. All right. You're going to say, all right, well, now that email should have taken like, 15 seconds. Now it takes like 2 minutes because now what I'm sending is extremely heavy in terms of packet size. And I got to wait for my system to decrypt it. So I need to take a look at the key, verify things. Hopefully you set the owner trust appropriately and it works, right? Now it takes longer. So these are all things to think about. Now, is it secure? Yes. Will it take longer to use? Most definitely. If you add something like cryptography to your laptop, right? You can say, I'm going to encrypt my hard drive. I will also encrypt my home folder. It will take longer for your system to decrypt everything. Right? Say you have a solid state and everything takes like less than a minute. You have all these encryption features. It could take a couple minutes depending upon how big your hard drive is. All right, so this particular site here just says access control is not complete without coupled auditing for accountability. So you can see that you have the subject to the far left, and to the right, you have all the objects. And there's a security kernel. So this is identification, authentication, authorization, accountability. They cannot just interact with the objects. The reference monitor is in between, and here it shows auditing transactions. What, who, how, and when. Again, there's something in between to make sure the subject cannot directly access the objects. All right. So I'm going to just jump right here real quick. We have a little bit of time left. I'm going to find a good stopping place, ask questions. All right. So one of the challenges with like biometrics, there's a number of things, we'll talk about that, but one of the biggest challenges is the crossover error rate. So this is the false acceptance versus the false rejection. There's a lot of issues with biometric, especially facial recognition. Facial recognition for those of color, it's not good. There's a large error rate, and even in white, there's a error rate as well. The error rate just gets larger within blacks or people of that have pigmentation. The error rate gets extremely large. So here, it just shows like the crossover error rate is and meets where the type 1 and 2 type 1 and type 2 errors cross. And then the other issue is user acceptance. Privacy is a big issue. User acceptance. So when you think about these issues, would you guys be comfortable in having to use your biometrics for doing everyday things? You need to use your credit card. Would you be happy with providing biometrics as well to use your credit card?
Not really.
Okay, why is that?
Like for example, it's easy to for example, if somebody's like, it's easy to copy, like, somebody's biometrics. Like if they use some other technology like sprays, they can copy it on some device and they can use it on your device as well.
Okay. I mean, when you think about your biometrics, like this is the stuff that makes you who you are. Right? It's a lot. So, some organizations you have to use it, but for like everyday tasks, like, okay, why do I got to use biometrics to go do this or do this? I mean, it's like, can you even choose right? There's issues now when you think about all the breaches. So imagine now you have an organization that has, quite a bit of your biometrics stored, and they have a breach. Now, all of your biometrics they're out there, right? Some other organization has it. Now I'm looking at Cat. Cat says, this is why I like stuff like Apple, Google Pay, because it uses biometrics, but it stays on your device. Cat, I agree, right? It stays on your device. However, if you lose your device, you should have something to make sure that individuals can't just get to your device. Now, there's a USB that I'll talk about later, but they do a great job in terms of having active anti-tamper. So if someone tries to access the USB drive a certain amount of times, it is just wiped clean. All the contents are gone. And so if you do something like that, then it's perfect. And people, they're responsible for their biometrics at that point. But now if I say, all right, I'm going to entrust other organization and manage my biometrics, and they can't even manage my basic data that I give them, information I give them, then it's a no, right? All right, we're going to stop here. So I'm going to pause the recording.